I don't choose these stories. They find me. Listen carefully. Some stories don't frighten you because of what appeared. They frighten you because of what didn't care you were there at all. Most encounters revolve around the living, but some are never meant for us. I first heard this story from a young man who looked uneasy simply holding it. He wasn't the kind of person who chases mysteries or indulges in folklore. He sought me out because someone told him, "That guy doesn't laugh at these things." That was reason enough for him to find me in a small border town between Colombia and Ecuador. Not to mention him being obsessed about this experience that haunted him day and night. This man had lived almost his entire life in a remote settlement near an area traditionally known as La Quebrada de los dos Caminos, the ravine of two paths, the kind of place where you can walk for miles without seeing another human being, where mist drifts through deep cuts in the earth, and where abandoned mining tunnels still breathe cold air like the exhalations of something asleep beneath the soil. In that valley, people said strange things moved in darkness, choosing one path or the other depending on what the night demanded. Some paths were for the living, others decidedly not. The man unfolded an old piece of paper, a drawing. The lines were shaky, the shapes disproportionate, the angles strange. I recognized the tension in his hands. This wasn't a story he wanted to carry alone. He was a practical man, worked long hours, believed in weather more than superstition, and walked home late from shifts in the late 1970s when the region was even more isolated than it is today. Fog was common, so was silence. But one night, the fog fell so thick it muffled his footsteps. The world felt padded, swallowed, almost absent. As he approached an old collapsed mine entrance, he heard something that stopped him cold. Two rhythms, heavy, deliberate, not fast, not human, but purposeful. They echoed through the ravine with a kind of slow inevitability, like the approach of something that didn't need to hurry. He thought they were footsteps, two sets, but the fog thinned in just the right places, and he realized they weren't footsteps at all. Two shapes emerged, one luminescent and elongated, swaying like cold flame trapped in a human silhouette. The other compact and dense, edges heavy enough to distort the fog around it. They stood facing each other, not moving, not acknowledging the man who had accidentally stumbled into their presence. A standoff of forces that had nothing to do with him. He crouched behind a boulder, heart pounding. He felt, not heard, the tension in the air, the way the shadows pulled inward as if holding their breath. The collision happened without warning. One moment, there were statues in the fog. The next, the ravine erupted in flashes of white and black. They didn't fight like animals. They didn't grapple or strike. They collided like opposing currents of energy, light breaking, shadow compressing, each impact sending a burst of cold air across the witness's skin. The luminous one expanded into a halo, blinding for a heartbeat. The dark one collapsed inward, forming a dense sphere that bent the fog around it. They split into fragments, reformed, phased through rock walls as if material boundaries were optional. The man said their movements were too fast to follow, but too structured to be chaotic. They weren't flailing. They weren't improvising. They were correcting each other, as if their very existence was incompatible. Flashes of white rippled across the walls of the ravine. Bursts of shadow swallowed entire pockets of fog. For a moment, he felt a pressure in his lungs, like the air around him was being recalibrated. It ended as abruptly as it began. The bright figure rose into the fog, dissolving upward like breath on a cold morning. The dark one sank into the ground, absorbed by soil that did not shift or crack. And then the ravine was still, so still that the man wondered if sound itself had been observing silence out of fear. He didn't move for several minutes that seemed eternity. The witness told no one except his wife, not because he feared ridicule, but because he feared recognition, the possibility that someone else might say, yes, they fight here too. In the weeks after the encounter, the land changed around him. Animals avoided the ravine entirely. Fog moved in directions that contradicted the wind. Shadows stretched unnaturally long behind him, sometimes lagging, sometimes configured in ways his body did not match. The sounds of the wind had a metallic hum rather perplexing. He spent the rest of his life convinced he had witnessed something neutral, impersonal, and deeply incompatible with human life. Two forces meeting in the wrong place at the wrong time. Of a dimensional portal, perhaps. When the man finished recounting the story, he unfolded the drawing again. The proportions were all wrong, the outlines unstable, but the logic was unmistakable. Two entities in standoff, neither belonging to the terrain. And I recognized it, because I've seen similar drawings, from different continents, different eras, different witnesses, not identical shapes, but identical relationships, opposing forces, correcting each other. People always want answers, but some encounters don't fit in categories. Ball lightning doesn't take shapes. Fog shadows don't collide with intention. Mining magnetism doesn't rise into the sky. Folklore can approximate. Guardian spirits, territorial entities, boundary keepers of the old world. Science can speculate. Energy interactions, atmospheric anomalies, rare mineralominescent events. But neither explains two figures meeting with such purposeful opposition. So I offer only a possibility. If certain entities travel, drift, or cross between thresholds, maybe they don't all belong to the same order. And when two incompatible forces reach the same place at the same moment, conflict is inevitable. The old man wasn't meant to see that battle. He simply stood too close to a border where two paths meet. Some things do not haunt us. Some things do not acknowledge us. They have their own wars. And when we witness them, what we see is not an apparition. It's an accident. The case ends here, for now. Reality bends more easily than people can imagine.